Currently, he's the VP and Chief Behavioral Economist at ADP, where he directs the application of the principles of behavioral economies to new product development in the human capital management market. Please welcome Jordan Birnbaum as he starts the conversation today.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Maria. I appreciate that. How are we doing with sound? Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect. Okay, beautiful. I'll just keep remembering to project. Okay, so as Maria stated, I've had quite a roller coaster of a career involved in a lot of different startups, so I relate to what a lot of people are going through when you have good months and bad months and wonder if you're going to be able to keep the lights on. So I guess more than anything, I just want to start off by saying I empathize. I've been there too. And through all of that, I started to find over time some of my passions and what I enjoyed the most about entrepreneurship. And it turned out that I was incredibly interested in the science of motivation. And that led me to industrial and organizational psychology, which led me to behavioral economics. And my hope today is to provide you guys with a little bit of understanding about this new science that's emerging and gaining a lot of popularity, and then think and talk about how this could apply to specific situations that you guys deal with, and hopefully give you the opportunity to incorporate new ideas so that when you're facing different kinds of challenges, you have some thoughts about how best to address them. So for today, we're going to be talking about foundationally, what is this science? What does it mean? How can we understand it? And how is it applicable to us? And then we'll get into some of the things that we can understand about gender bias by considering the fields of both psychology and behavioral economics. And then talk a little bit about how specifically this group can use some of these principles both to support business goals, and as entrepreneurs, I think more than most, we know that oftentimes what we're doing in business is a reflection of what's happening in our lives. And so we'll talk a little bit about more how we can set ourselves up for success in making some of the changes that we want to make, whether it's in business, in life, or both. And so before we move on, I suppose the last question that you might have is, why are there several pictures of audiences seemingly having a wonderful time? And the answer is because I'm priming you to find the rest of this presentation utterly delightful. So you can tell me afterwards whether or not it worked, but that's the first example of behavioral economics, actually. And one of the nice things about BE, as I will sometimes call it, is that even if I tell you what I'm doing, it doesn't make it any less effective, at least theoretically. You can tell me afterwards if I'm wrong about that. Okay, so I am sorry right off the bat, this is the worst it's going to be. But to talk about behavioral economics, usually the best starting place is classical economics, which is very dry, and I promise I'll go through this really quickly. But ultimately, economics is about making predictions. Economists build models, and they put various inputs into those models, and then the models will spit out predictions. So for example, oh, you know what? I was supposed to set my timer, and I forgot, so let me make sure I do that. Sorry, everyone. Okay. So, for example, we might say, well, we know what the demand is for a particular resource, and we know what the supply is of a particular resource, so by understanding those inputs, we can then predict something like, what's the price going to be? And then it gets infinitely complex from there. But the point is that for these models to work, it requires that we make certain assumptions about human beings who are participating in these markets. And they can be pretty interesting. So for example, if our models are going to work, we have to assume that all people have access to full and relevant information. And we know that's probably not terribly realistic. But when it comes to behavioral economics, there's one assumption in particular that is extremely important. In classical economics, for models to work, we have to assume that human beings are perfectly rational actors.